In 1963, a telephone lineman in Dayton, Ohio, walked off his route for the last time at 59. His final salary was $6,100 a year. He owned his house outright. He owned a second lot bought for $800 in cash. His savings account held $22,400. He had never touched the stock market. He had never spoken to a financial advisor. He had never borrowed money for anything except the original mortgage, and he had retired 11 years early. He did not consider himself wealthy. He considered himself done. Done with the bank. Done with owing. He built that life on one paycheck and a set of habits so ordinary he never thought to write them down. Most of them died with his generation. They built wealth differently, not with portfolios or advisors, with habits. Small, structural, relentless habits wired into them by parents who watched everything disappear in 1932 and never forgot. Those habits paid off mortgages and funded retirements on incomes that would not cover a modern utility bill. We discarded every one of them the moment the credit card arrived and the bank told us debt was a tool. This was not finance. This was architecture. Every paycheck was a brick in a wall the family was building against the future. When the lending industry arrived selling freedom, we mistook it for progress. We put down the bricks. We started renting the wall. Number 19 on this list added no extra money to the household budget and still cut the average 1960s mortgage by 9 full years. Number 11 was so effective that Federal Reserve researchers identified it in 1971 as the single greatest obstacle to consumer credit expansion, and the lending industry spent the next decade lobbying to dismantle it. And number 2, the rule that built more middle-class net worth than every pension plan and government housing program combined, takes less than 4 minutes a month to execute. It always has. These 25 ways were not about deprivation. They were about construction. The difference between a family that owned its life and a family that made monthly payments on the illusion of one. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 forgotten ways 1960s American families built real wealth on a single paycheck. Number 25, the written weekly budget. A typewriter repairman in Rochester sat down every Sunday with a yellow legal pad. Every dollar in, every dollar out. The columns had to balance before Monday. Not approximately. Exactly. If they did not agree, he found the mistake. He did not move until he found it. By 1955, roughly 60% of American households kept written accounts. By 1985, fewer than 20% did. The credit card had arrived and made the budget feel unnecessary. That was not an accident. The ledger did not track money, it tracked discipline. Number 24, the grocery list rule. A machinist's wife in Youngstown never entered a store without a list written 2 days before shopping day. The gap was a buffer. Items written in Tuesday's hunger that looked foolish by Thursday were crossed off. She bought from the list, nothing else. Supermarkets in the 1960s were already using product placement to push impulse purchases. She had no name for the science. She had a list. She did not shop, she executed. Number 23, the 2-day wait rule. Before any unplanned purchase over $5, a sheet metal worker in Akron waited 48 hours. Set it down. Come back in 2 days. Across 9 years, he declined roughly $340 in goods that looked essential on day 1 and unnecessary on day 3. The consumer economy was engineering urgency into retail, sales ending Sunday, clearance racks, layaway limits. The 48-hour rule diffused all of it. The wait was not patience. The wait was armor. Number 22, the sealed savings envelope. Every payday, a bus driver in Cincinnati placed $12 in a sealed envelope in the kitchen drawer. It sat untouched until December. 12 months later, he had $312. Every gift, every meal, every tree was paid in cash. Not 1 cent of December debt followed him into January. The Christmas Club account ran on the same principle. By 1985, banks had quietly phased it out because the revolving credit line generated more revenue. December was not a surprise. December was on the calendar every year. Number 21, the cash-only month. Once a year, a factory supervisor in Gary ran his household entirely on cash for 30 days. By rule, not choice. Handing over bills made cost visible in a way a signed slip never did. He always found leaks he had not expected, a dime here, 15 cents there. The generation that used cash was not primitive. They were precise. Cash did not obscure the transaction. It completed it, visibly, finally. Cash told the truth about things. Number 20. The raise quarantine. When a steel worker in Pittsburgh received his annual raise, $4 to $8 a week in the early 1960s, he did not adjust the budget upward. The full raise went to savings or to principal. His standard of living in 1969 looked identical to 1961. His net worth did not. The family was already surviving on the pre-raise income. The post-raise dollar was surplus. Surplus had one job, not comfort, not upgrade, equity. The raise was not a reward. The raise was ammunition. Number 19, the one extra payment. Every January, a millwright in Erie sent one extra mortgage payment labeled principal only. That single annual check, over 9 years, cut 11 years off his 30-year loan and saved $6,400 in interest at 1962 rates. The first dollar applied to principal in year 1 was worth $7 against principal in year 22. By 1978, lenders had buried the principal-only option behind paperwork most borrowers never requested. The extra check threatened their interest income. 1 check a year, 11 years off the back. Number 18, the no-debt furniture rule. A plasterer in Cleveland bought furniture once, used and paid cash when he moved in. When the couch wore out in 1965, his wife reupholstered it for $18. When the chairs broke, he repaired them. Furniture financing in the 1960s charged 18 to 30% interest annually. A $300 sofa financed over 2 years cost $380. She knew none of this in those terms. She knew the sofa cost $300, and she did not have $300. So she waited. Then she paid $300, not $380. They did not own nice furniture. They owned the house. Here is the number that matters. In 1965, the median working-class household carried $180 in consumer debt. Not mortgage debt, consumer debt. Today, the same household, adjusted for inflation, carries the equivalent of $16,400. Income has risen, but debt has risen faster. That gap did not open because Americans became reckless. It opened because the financial system was redesigned between 1965 and 1985 to make debt feel normal and inevitable. Families in the 1960s avoided debt because the culture still treated it as failure. The moment the bank started calling a credit line financial flexibility, the wall came down. We have been living on the other side ever since. Number 17, the Sunday meal plan. A welder's wife in Flint planned every meal for the week on Sunday afternoon. 7 dinners, 7 lunches, 7 breakfasts. They bought exactly what the list required. Leftovers from Monday's roast became Tuesday's soup. The meal plan eliminated the most expensive moment in household food purchasing, standing in a kitchen at 6 in the evening with nothing planned. That moment sent families to the diner. The diner cost 3 times what the kitchen cost. The plan was not a recipe. The plan was a weapon. Number 16, the repair first rule. A toolmaker in Detroit did not replace what could be fixed. A washing machine drum bent in 1961, and he straightened it with a block of wood. A lawnmower seized in 1964, and a $1.40 gasket fixed it. The neighbor bought a new mower for $89. The toolmaker spent $1.40. Across his household's life, the rule kept roughly $400 in his savings account and out of the retail economy. The appliance industry was already engineering shorter lifespans. The toolmaker was engineering resistance. The wrench was a financial instrument. Number 15, the second job for the deed. A foundry worker in Canton took weekend handyman jobs from April through October. $8 a Saturday, sometimes $12. Every dollar went to principal. By 1968, the weekend work had paid down $1,640, nearly 2 full years of extra payments. He did not call it extra work. He called it getting done faster. He was not working for more. He was working for less time indebted, less time with the bank holding a claim on the house where his children slept. The Saturday work did not buy him things. It bought him time. Number 14, the one-car family. A bookkeeper in Cincinnati and her husband shared one used Rambler for the first decade of their marriage. He drove it to the plant. She walked the children to school. Avoiding a second car saved roughly $380 a year for insurance, gas, registration, and maintenance. That $380 went on to principal every year for 10 years. By 1970, 2-car households outnumbered 1-car households in America for the first time. The auto industry had reframed transportation access as a social minimum. The bookkeeper's family had already paid off the house. 2 cars was a lifestyle. 1 car was a deed. Number 13, the children's earnings contribution. When a pipe fitter's son in Philadelphia turned 13 and got a paper route, the rule was simple. Half his pay went to him, and half went into the family account labeled House. 60 cents a week, roughly $30 a year. Across 4 years, $122 added to principal. The amount was not the point. The enrollment was. The boy was being taught that the house was a project the whole family ran. By the time the loan retired, he was 17 and could read a mortgage statement. No classroom had taught him any of it. The root taught the house. The house taught the lesson. Number 12, the property tax fund. A pressman in Toledo set aside $4.50 every week in a savings account labeled tax. Annual property taxes on a modest Ohio home in the early 1960s ran from $210 to $260. Those weekly deposits meant the bill was paid before it arrived. No scrambling, no borrowing, no late penalty. The tax bill was not an event. It was a withdrawal. Modern Americans pay property taxes through lender-managed escrow, a system that emerged because lenders discovered that unbundling the payment led to delinquencies they absorbed. The escrow was not a service. It was a correction for a habit already lost. Number 11, the insurance audit. Every 2 years, a railroad clerk in Dayton walked into his agent's office and asked for a full review. He adjusted coverage as the mortgage balance fell, and he dropped riders on paid-off items. The audits returned $45 a year on average. Those $45 were applied to principal every June. Most households reviewed their insurance only once, when they bought it, and never again. The agent renewed automatically, and the premium rose automatically. The clerk asked, over 16 years, his audits saved $720, shaving 3 months off the loan. The reviewed policy was a smaller leak in a wall with no other leaks. In 1968, economists at the University of Michigan surveyed 3,800 working-class households that had retired their mortgages in under 14 years. They expected higher incomes or inheritances. They found neither. The median household earned 11% below the national average. What they found was behavioral consistency. On average, 18 distinct principal-reducing habits ran simultaneously per household. No single habit was decisive. The aggregate was. The study was published, cited twice, and then forgotten. The mortgage industry that expanded through the 1970s was built on the opposite premise: borrow longer, refinance often, and treat the 30-year loan as permanent. The habits were not lost because they failed. They were lost because they worked. Number 10, the vacation that did not leave town. A factory foreman in Lansing and his family did not travel for vacation from 1960 to 1968. They visited a lake 40 miles away, brought sandwiches, and came home the same afternoon. The $90 they did not spend on motels and restaurants went to principal every August. Across 8 years, they contributed $720 to principal, and they retired their mortgage 11 months early. The lake was free, and in the accounting of that household, it was a financial instrument. The vacation stayed home. The deed arrived early. Number 9, the utility discipline. A sheet metal worker in Akron turned off every light when he left a room. He set the thermostat to 62 degrees Fahrenheit at night. He line-dried laundry 9 months a year. Those habits cut his monthly utility costs by roughly $6.50 compared with neighbors in identical houses. $6.50 a month over 11 years added up to $858 applied to mortgage principal, more than his entire first year of mortgage payments. A light left on was not an oversight. It was money leaving through the ceiling. No utility company offered rebates. His audit was his own hand on the switch. The switch was an argument, and he won it every night. Number 8, the used car code. A telephone lineman in Columbus followed 3 rules when buying a car: used only, cash only, drive it until it stopped. His 1957 Ford, bought for $640 in 1959, ran until 1971. His neighbor replaced cars every 3 years and spent nearly $3,200 across the same period. The lineman spent $1,530 total. The difference of $1,670 retired 2 full years of the loan in lump payments. Never borrow for something that loses value. The rule applied to cars and furniture, not to houses. Houses were the point. The car was transportation. The house was wealth. He never confused the two. Number 7, the no cosign rule. A steel worker in Gary refused to cosign any loan for any family member. Not his brother's car, not his brother-in-law's business, not his son's apartment. A cosigned loan was a contingent liability, a potential hole in a balance sheet he had spent 11 years making airtight. In the 1960s, the cosigned loan destroyed more working-class wealth than nearly any other single instrument. The liability was invisible until the primary borrower defaulted. Then it appeared all at once. He did not say no. He said, "Not on my ledger." Number 6, the church envelope before the bank envelope. An assembly worker in Youngstown gave 10% of every paycheck to his church before any other obligation, not after. before. The giving trained the hand to release the first dollars before they could be rationalized into something else. The exact muscle needed to pay the mortgage first, save first, and fund the tax account first. The giving habit was the savings habit in a different collar. His father had taught it under a different name at no charge. The first dollar was never his to keep. That was the discipline that kept everything else. Number 5, the Family Loan Network. When a bricklayer in Camden needed $500 for an emergency roof repair in 1962, he went to his brother. 0%. Repaid over 14 months at $36 a month. The bank would have charged 6%, roughly $48 in interest, that instead went on to the mortgage. Working-class communities maintained informal lending networks entirely outside banking. Italian, Polish, Greek, and African-American neighborhoods ran rotating credit pools that funded down payments and repairs. The banks called these primitive. The families called them free. The family was the bank. The bank was the outsider. Number 4, the pay first discipline. Every payday, before groceries, before utilities, a sheet metal worker in Toledo wrote the mortgage check first. If the rest did not cover everything else, something else was cut. Never the mortgage. The order was the rule. Pay last means pay from what remains. What remains is always less than expected. Pay first means pay from certainty. What follows is managed on what is left. First means certain. Last means contingent. The first check was not the largest. It was the most important. Number 3, the written financial goal. A toolmaker in Cincinnati kept one index card inside his kitchen cabinet. In pencil, mortgage retired, 1971. Balance, $4,240. He updated it every January. When the balance hit 0 in November 1970, a year early, he wrote "done" across it and put it in the drawer with the deed. The written goal made the endpoint visible on an ordinary Tuesday morning over coffee. Every spending decision became legible. This dollar moves toward the card. That dollar moves away. The card was not a wish. The card was an address. He was going there. Number 2, OWE no man. 5 words. Not manage debt responsibly. Not use credit strategically. Oh, no man. If it could not be bought with cash, it was not bought. If it required financing, it required equity on the other end. Houses built equity. Cars did not. The rule sat above every other financial decision as the premise from which all else descended. A postal worker in Columbus inherited it from a father who had watched the bank take the family farm in 1933 for $400 unpaid. The son applied it for 40 years and retired at 61 with no obligation to any institution on earth. The rule was brutal. The rule was boring. The rule built more middle-class wealth than every financial product ever sold to the American consumer. Oh, no man. 5 words. A generation's foundation. Number 1, spend less than you earn. That is the complete rule. No envelope, no Christmas club, no strategy. The unglamorous, unfashionable discipline of spending less than came through the door every week, every month, every year, until the gap became the savings, the payoff, the deed in the drawer. The telephone lineman in Dayton was not running 24 systems. He was running one with such consistency that 24 others arranged themselves around it. He spent less than he earned. Every other habit was a channel carrying that water somewhere useful. None of these required a degree or an advisor. They required attention. The willingness to look at a paycheck the way a builder looks at lumber, as material, not magic. The 1960s working-class family understood that ownership is not the same as access, that a paid-off house is worth more than a leveraged portfolio, even when the appraisal is identical, that the ability to walk away from a bad job or a bad year is the only definition of wealth that ever mattered to anyone who actually needed it. These were not the habits of men who feared spending. These were the habits of men who understood what spending cost, not in dollars, but in days. Every dollar to a creditor was a day the creditor owned. Every dollar kept was a day that belonged to the family. The lineman had been buying his days back since 1932. By 1963, he owned all of them. The habits still work. The arithmetic has not changed. What has changed is the voice telling you the old rules are quaint, that leverage is sophisticated, that a monthly payment is not debt, but access. That voice is not neutral. That voice has an interest in the answer it gives you. The lineman had no use for that voice. He had a ledger book and a paycheck and 40 years of knowing exactly what each one meant. The bank has not had a claim on his house since 1963. That is what was built. That is what was forgotten. That is what can still be built if we are willing to look like the kind of people who know what a brick is for.